Nearly 3 years into Russia's full-scale invasion, experts say Ukraine has become the most mined country in the world. There are an estimated 2 million landmines contaminating 40% of its territory. Unexploded ordnance is another problem, even near the capital, Kyiv, as DW's Rebecca Ritters reports.
It's painstaking and dangerous. More than 2 years after Russian soldiers were forced out of Kyiv, deminers are still working to clear unexploded ordnance from areas on the city's outskirts.
It's not only civilians who are at risk, but also the economy. Many areas of forest are dangerous because of mines or the aftermath of fighting. This hits the economy hard because whole hectares of land cannot be farmed.
Experts from the Halo Trust, the world's biggest mine clearance organisation, estimate there are many millions of explosive items in Ukraine's soil, including more than 2 million landmines laid by Russia since the full-scale invasion. The scale of this problem is immense. It's not just here in Kyiv, but right across the country there are hundreds of sites like this. Removing all the landmines and unexploded ordnance will take years, if not decades. To bolster capabilities, the Halo Trust has been taking on war veterans with extensive battlefield experience. Veterans like Ruslan Yakob, who served as a sapper clearing mines for the military until he stepped on one himself.
We'd captured an enemy position and were ordered to clear it of explosives and hazardous items. While we were securing the area, we came under artillery fire and had to seek cover. Unfortunately, I stepped on a mine and was injured.
Yakob hoped that when he recovered, he could go back to his battalion. But the challenges posed by his prosthesis made the rigours of the military too difficult and he was demobilised.
The Halo Trust gives me the chance to keep on working for my country. That's really important.
And contribute they do. Using their knowledge of warfare, the vets analyse these high-resolution drone images. They identify with a skilled eye and determine where the other side might have placed explosives.
We had a lot of expertise in flying drones, in analysing imagery and bringing data together, but we were sort of missing some domain knowledge about the local context in the battlefield, and we're hoping that the veterans will help us understand a little bit better.
It's a win-win, they tell me. Given the industrial scale of landmine and explosive ordnance laying in Ukraine, the role of the war vets is invaluable.
Naomi Konza is the manager of the United Nations Development Programme's Mine Action Project in Ukraine. Naomi, good to see you. The scale of contamination, we heard it there, is startling. What areas are most affected in Ukraine?
Yeah, thank you and good morning. What we're seeing in Ukraine is that there is about 138,000 square kilometres of land that has been exposed to conflict and remains to be surveyed to identify where the actual contamination lies within that area. Most of the contamination that we are finding is across conflict-affected areas. So this includes agricultural lands and forests and urban areas and underwater locations. It's concentrated largely in liberated territories along front lines. But there has also been extensive use of scatterable mines in Ukraine, delivered via artillery rockets or projectiles or drone. So this means that the contamination is varied. It includes anti-personnel mines, anti-vehicle mines, cluster munitions and unexploded ordnance. And for these types of mines, they can remain armed for hours or days if they are detonated by an electrical source, or they can potentially remain there for decades if they have mechanical fuses, which causes a long-term threat.
Exactly. They're expected to far outlast the conflict. How long, in your experience, does it take to make contaminated areas safe again?
Well, it depends what the contamination is and how the approach is being used. as I said at the beginning, it's really important that the area that has been exposed to conflict is surveyed. It is the first step, doing non-technical survey, going out and actually looking at it to identify where we have suspected hazardous areas or confirmed hazardous areas. Through this already, Ukraine has been able to reduce over 35,000 square kilometres of land and have that taken away from the contaminated area and put back to productive use by the community. So this is why the survey is so important, because when you're deploying the deminers, the real heroes, out to the field, they need to be going where there's the real contamination, because it is a time and resource extensive process.
What will be the long-term consequences of the contamination?
Well, there's got a couple of main consequences. I mean, already we're seeing communities displaced and it disrupts daily life. Civilians face constant risk of injury or death. By the end of August 2024, there was 1,286 victims of mines and explosive remnants of war in Ukraine. And the projections by the government see this number potentially rising to 9,000 by 2030 if this isn't addressed. And also, we understand the impact of global food security. Ukraine is in the top 10 wheat producers in the world. Before the war, about 90% of Ukraine's wheat exports went to countries in Africa and Asia. So it has not only implications here, but also abroad.
That was Naomi Konza from the UNDP's Mine Action Project. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.